Entering southern Tanzania, we stumbled into the beautiful tea plantations. Unexpectedly finding beautiful scenery was going to become a theme for Tanzania. Sometimes you have to get up early to see the best sights, so we took ourselves off to the game park at the crack of dawn. We didn't have our own guide, but that didn't stop us getting very up close and personal with some of the larger beasts in the safari areas. It was always a question of whether we should leave the engines running or sit quietly and hope that nobody saw us. Clearly leaving the engines running started to spook half the park, so when we did pull up next time we turned the engines off and sat quietly. Some of us couldn't help getting a little higher up to try and get the best shot, but if you've got an Africa Twin, that's the least of your worries. All of the animals were visible just from the public highway. It was amazing watching them, watching us, watching them, watching us. Hungry from all the excitement, we pulled into a street-side cafe, but first things first, we had to check the internet. Well, we are addicts after all.
I was having this discussion in a taxi heading downtown.
Back out on the highway, it was easy to forget about the lumbering fuel tankers or the overloaded motorcycles. We just relaxed into the bends and enjoyed some of the best riding we'd had for a long time. A careful safety check and steady indication isn't enough to disguise the fact that I was overtaking on a solid white. But out here, jungle law trumps the laws of the road, and you have to be on your guard against crashed or broken vehicles, loads of cows and other animals crossing the middle of the highway just when you least expect it. The roads got choked with traffic as we got closer to Dar es Salaam. We struggled onto the ferry and took a moment to chillax a little bit, along with several hundred other people who were all commuting home that day. It's not the hot weather that bothers us, but just trying to get our bikes out would be nice. The Dow-endowed seaside certainly kept us happy for a little while, but soon it was time to head off and keep going north. Tanzania was proving to be a lot greener than we had expected, with a variety of trees growing down on the lowlands, the highlands, and up on the highest plateaus. If you're a tree hugger, this is a place for you. Our determination to follow the road less travelled led us into all sorts of different terrain, but whether it's a GS or an Africa Twin, we were able to handle it with aplomb and just had a fantastic afternoon's riding. When we emerged out of the forests, we were treated to the most marvellous views, and all the villagers were keeping us entertained with the way they would wave or just chase up to us as soon as we stopped the bikes. That's one of the things we hadn't been expecting until Ethiopia. It got to the point where the whole village was coming out to greet us, which was lovely, but we had to keep going, which was a little bit sad, so we slipped off as politely as we could. At a marvellous cliff-top campsite, we shared dinner and anecdotes with a lovely Swiss couple called Johann and Christa. A short walk into the hills gave us a better view of where we'd been camping. It really was quite spectacular, but the locals carry on life regardless of what we tourists think.
Lovely Rita, meet a maid, nothing can come between.
It would be good if some of the tourist money went flowing down into these schools for the local village. You can see they're pretty barren, to say the least. We were really keen to get back out onto the bikes. The dry season here means that all the tracks are fantastically good to ride, but I'd hate to see this in the wet season. Our new Swiss friends had caught us up, and as punishment for going so slowly, we were forced to sit through another amazing evening meal. The view was there to keep us happy as well. Despite the wise words of some kindly locals, we decided we'd try the direct route back down to the valley floor. That may not have been such a good idea, because the GS had to endure some of the hardest riding I'd put through since, well, China, I suppose. Well, if you haven't tried it, this may not look too hard, but I can assure you the gradient is a hell of a lot steeper than this, and with loose gravel underneath the front wheel, you really don't want to be dropping that big GS over the side of a cliff. The big Bavarian lady was giving a very good account of herself. As a warning of things to come, the way out was a dried sandy riverbed, followed by more dry sandy tracks through the villages, and then more dry sandy shortcuts back to a dry sandy track. You get the idea. This lady is not for turning, at least not on soft sand. It's the one surface I really do not like, and this bike will handle it, but not with any ease.
Every time I think I'm close, you take me closer. Even now when you're away, I feel you near.
Well, once we got out of the bush, things improved rapidly, and we were treated to a lovely green landscape, the likes of which we really hadn't expected. I'm not quite sure where the other roads were supposed to go, but we found this one to be quite charming. Even a few mechanical scares couldn't stop us falling in love with Tanzania. It really is an adventurer's paradise.